is all about DRE compliance and the latest guidelines, and we have a lady coming to us from Zoom. I am so sorry that you can't meet Veronica in person, because she is a delight. I get to see her on a regular basis at the risk management meeting that I go to every month. All right, we'll begin with a brief presentation from Veronica Kilpatrick with the California Department of Real Estate. Veronica has over 15 years of public service, establishing herself as a leader in consumer protection and real estate regulation in California. She currently serves as San Diego Enforcement District Manager for the California Department of Real Estate, overseeing a large portfolio of enforcement cases and regulatory compliance. Prior to her public service career, Veronica gained sales and management experience as a licensed realtor and director of sales and office manager for a technology company. She holds a Master of Public Administration from the University of Southern California and graduated with honors from UCLA with a BA in political science. After Veronica's presentation, we will open up to the audience for questions, so please use the question cards found on each of your tables to submit your questions to our staff. Just raise your hand if you have a question, and we will collect the question cards throughout the session. Please join me. Oh, look, you're there, Veronica. Please join me in welcoming Veronica. Take it away.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you, Jeff, for your kind introduction. Before I start, I just would like to thank SCAR for putting this event together. I've been coming to it for many years, and I've always learned a lot from this event, but I also get a chance to interact with a lot of you. I know some of you don't want to interact with me, but that's all right. Just know that if I don't know you, that's a really great thing. So with that said, I'm going to stop sharing my video so we get less possible technological issues with the presentation. All right. In today's presentation, I will be providing you with a quick overview of the Department of Real Estate's licensing enforcement, audits, and legal affairs section information for the last fiscal year, which is 2022 to 2023. I will also go over some new laws, just a quick review, and I will be happy to take questions at the end of my presentation. First and foremost, I'd like to state that statutorily, our mission is that's going to be our higher priority. And that mission is codified through the Business and Professions Code section 1005.1. We do this through 5 offices throughout the state, and the nearest to you is in Kearny Mesa in San Diego. Today I'm going to be speaking about 4 programs, licensing, enforcement, audits, and legal, although we do have more programs than that at the department. First, I'm going to go through some stats. The DRE's licensing division administers real estate license examinations and issues and renews salespersons and brokers' licenses, as well as MLO endorsements. In the exam administration, as you can see, we gave out 44,183 exams, salespersons examined this year, which was lower than last year, but higher than the previous year. And this is due to COVID, a high market, and of course, the high inventory and tight interest markets cause examinations to drop. We also administered 3,300 about broker examinations, which again, brokers are a little more stable than the salesperson examinations. This chart reflects a 25% decrease in the issuance of new salesperson's licenses and a 20% decrease in the issuances of broker licenses. And again, you could see that that's true for the year before, but it's higher than 2 years ago. Our licensing population, as you could see, renewals. So 54,000 salespersons renewed their license, and about 27,000 brokers renewed their licenses again. On the renewals, it was just a slight change between the 3 years. DRE Licensing Division also responds to inquiries from licensees, license applicants, and others. Last year, we saw a high call volume to DRE, and licensing staff handled approximately 130,000 phone calls. Most of the callers chose our new callback feature, which allows them to leave their number in a queue for a callback without needing to wait on hold. That enhancement occurred back in when the phone line applicants had emailed our Ask at DRE licensing, and we responded to 21,000 emails. Due to the large number of applicants and licensees using this method, we actually updated that to our online messaging portal back in October 23rd. And we hope that that will be beneficial for both the Department of Real Estate and the licensees in getting their answers, their questions answered in a more timely fashion. Enforcement. The Department's Enforcement Division plays a critical role in fulfilling our mission to protect consumers by enforcing real estate law and the Subdivided Lands Act. DRE accomplishes this in part by investigating complaints against real estate licensees, subdividers, and unlicensed individuals and entities. DRE also initiates investigations based on any violations of the real estate have occurred, and if so, we provide recommendations about the appropriate disciplinary action that should be brought against the parties involved. As part of the investigation process, enforcement staff gather and review all pertinent documentation involved in the transaction, as well as carefully document the testimony of witnesses. DRE approaches the investigative and disciplinary process in a fair and impartial manner, being mindful of the confidentiality of the investigations and of the rights of both licensees and consumers in seeking to achieve justice and public protection. DRE has multiple forms of disciplinary actions. When challenging an applicant's qualifications for licensure, we file or revoke an existing license, and so by the Real Estate Law or Subdivided Lands Act, DRE files a desist and refrain order. And to enjoin people from working in real estate or related industries, DRE may file a bar order. The DRE has authority to issue citations and impose fines for violations of real estate law. And those citations are issued typically to real estate licensees for minor real estate violations that do not merit greater disciplinary action. But we also could issue those citations and impose a fine to an unlicensed person who is engaging in an activity for which a license is required. I frequently get asked questions of how we determine if an investigation is warranted. When we receive a complaint, we first review it for a few key points. Is the complaint within our jurisdiction? Is there a real estate act involved? Are the acts in the complaint within the statute of limitations? If the complaint meets all of these parameters, it is signed for an investigation. If it doesn't, we will close the complaint and let the complaint agency or to more resources for additional information. In addition to complaint-driven investigations, both our enforcement and audit sections conduct routine proactive surveys and audits. In both of these instances, the department views a visit to a broker as an opportunity for education for both the broker and the DRE staff. Here are some common violations we find in enforcement investigations. Advertising and licensing is one of the primary ones. We also get misrepresentation, fraud, and dishonest dealing, negligence or incompetence. Reporting compliance is out of the reports, threshold reports that are due if you're doing a certain level of business activity. Expanding on a wholly unlicensed, but is acting as a real estate licensee, but it also could include someone who's licensed, like a salesperson who is not affiliated with a broker, or a broker with no business address, or either a salesperson or a broker acting with an expired license, or someone who's licensed and is doing loan activities without an MLO endorsement, or someone that has a real estate license but is getting paid by someone else for a license activity, or someone is paying someone that has no license activity. As to the broker supervision violation, I just want to point out that broker supervision is based on Regulation 2725, but that is based actually on the Civil Code, starting with Section 2295. And those laws have not been changed since 1872. That fiduciary duties is an agent or another to act in the client's best interest. Those fiduciary duties are then extended to the broker salespersons and broker associates working under that broker. The transactions done under that brokerage are the broker's transactions and are therefore the broker's responsibilities. So, broker supervision requires that a broker establishes policies, rules, procedures, and systems, and those policies are to be used to review, oversee, inspect, and manage. What are you managing, or what are they supposed to address? Well, transactions, the keeping of the documents, reviewing the documents, the handling of trust funds, advertising, training people in federal and state discrimination laws, and also keeping regular reports of license activities of salespersons. The form and extent of those policies depend on the number of salespersons employed and the number and location of the branches. A broker not only has to have those policies, but they have to have a system to monitor that those policies and procedures are carried through. Now, what is reasonable supervision? That is a legal term that requires evidence to be presented as varies. The way we do business inside of account where they use title rather than escrow, for example. For more in-depth discussion on broker supervision, please review our 2023 spring and 2023 summer real estate bulletins. When you get a chance, there's a lot more information on this topic. I always get asked this question: how do we respond to a DRE inquiry? When we contact you for information, please provide complete responses, provide all the documents we requested, provide a chronological account of the transaction, and please have the designated officer or the broker reply unless we specifically ask for a salesperson to respond. If we ask you for policies, please provide the policy at least, also any supporting documents that shows how you monitor your policies. Please know that when we ask you this information, it does not necessarily mean that we think that you are culpable or have violated any real estate law. It just means that we just want to have all the information from you, side. We're giving you an opportunity to respond for us to see what occurred in a transaction. We're just fact finding, and we need all that information to ensure that we have all the facts in an investigation. I wanted to now go over some of our achievements in this last fiscal year. Enforcement received almost 2,400 complaints, 378 involved unlicensed activity. Out of those, 1,078 cases were referred to our DRE legal division, recommending disciplinary action. 75 resulted in citations to licensees, with approximately 800 fines assessed, 68 citations to unlicensed persons, and almost 70% of our investigations were completed in less than 6 months. So we try to be prompt. We want to make sure that if we know you're investigating any complaints, that we resolve them as fast as we can, and we'll let you know. Also, in addition to the calls received by our life section, enforcement handled over 40,000 calls related to compliance, complaints, and other consumers. Every office has an investigator that's on duty every day to answer any questions that you may have. Audits. Our audits division protects consumers by conducting financial compliance audits. These audits primarily focus on the handling of trust funds by licensees. DRE staff performs two types of audits: investigative and proactive. The investigatives are related to a complaint, and the proactives are of funds. In fiscal year 2023, DRE closed 457 audits. A total of 179 were investigative, and 278 were proactive audits. As a result of these audits, DRE found a shortage of 2.6 million, and because of the audits, we were able to get 1.5 million of those shortages corrected. This slide here breaks down the results of the 457 audits, and it tells you that only 18.6 resulted in major violations. Very small violations resulted in corrective action letters, and as you can see, about 50% of those have very slight violations or none at all. So that's a great thing. Our legal affairs sections, those are attorneys who regularly appear before administrative law judges to argue in favor of applications or denials of a license, or as part of disciplinary action in an effort to protect consumers. Last year, the DRE revoked 242 licenses, suspended 151 of 61, and denied 127 license applications. In total, our legal affairs section filed 402 cases and issued 1,096 orders. Please note that when you look at the orders, a case may have more than one licensee involved, and so therefore there's more orders on a case. And DRE by the numbers. In our latest DRE bulletin, we have all of this information, this graphic that shows all our accomplishments for the last year. If you want more information, please take a look at our bulletin when you have a chance. New laws. So there's I'm stopping a little because there was a connection unstable message, but new laws. There's quite a lot of them that passed, but I'm just going to address the ones that directly impact you in regards to the real estate law. This one actually passed last year, the Bias and Fair Housing Education Implementation, but it became effective January 1st. And that is that all applicants now need to complete a real estate practice course. Okay, the next one is AB 1345, and this is called the Residential Exclusive Listing Agreement Act. And this act says that it's unlawful for an exclusive listing to last longer than 24 months. It cannot be automatically renewed. The renewals cannot be longer than 12 months at a time. They have to be done in writing and dated every single time there's a renewal. It is unlawful to present an agreement, to record a listing agreement or any kind of memorandum. And it is also unlawful to enforce or attempt to enforce an exclusive agreement that has some of these prohibitions. sections, not to the Business and Professions Code. What it does, it adds sections to the Civil Code and to the Government Code. However, part of the verbiage says that any person licensed pursuant to, let's say, the Department of Real Estate, who violates any of these provisions shall have been deemed to have violated that person's licensing law. Which means that if someone is found that they have violated the terms of this exclusive listening code 10177D. The next one is a transfer disclosure statement, and that is effective July 1st, 2024. And although the requirements fall on the actual seller to disclose the information of any modifications where they got permits and provide the permits or the contractor information or the third party if you got that information to the buyer. Although it falls to the seller to disclose that information, the transfer disclosure statement language is statutory, means that it has to be exactly the same. And so you just want to make sure if you're not using a form that has been updated, that you do, because you need to include that information. I know a lot of you guys use card forms, but if you're not using a card form, you have to make sure that all the language required for the TDS is included in order to comply with this new law. Otherwise, a licensee may be found to be maybe in violation of negligence, of a negligent act. The next one is AB 1280, and this is similar in that it is a disclosure item, and it requires the seller to disclose natural hazard statements to the civil properties located in higher, very high fire partners, either themselves or through escrow order the disclosure. So please make sure that whatever company you're using has been updated, and that's effective January 2024, so 11 days ago. And again, if it's not done, it could be considered a negligent act. Now there was a lot of tenant laws that have passed, not only at the state level, but also a lot of ordinances. And so all these laws will impact tenant, if you're engaged in property management, if you're representing a seller or buyer in a transaction where a property is tenant occupied, or if you're just simply leasing a property after someone buys it, you need to be aware of these laws. Otherwise, you could be found giving the wrong advice, and it could be considered a negligence or an incompetent act. For example, if you're selling a property that's tenant occupied and then you recommend or agree that the contract should be for 30 days and the contract says that the tenants have to be out, it is highly unlikely that it will happen, because nowadays some tenants need at least a 60, if not 90-day notice. It depends on each in the area they're located, and so the seller could not fulfill that unless there's already an agreement in place that's being signed. But just be really, really careful when you are engaging in property management or representing sellers and buyers where a transaction is tenant occupied. The sellers and the buyers are relying on you to guide them through the process, so make sure that they're aware of all the tenants laws that impact a property. And please, I understand I provided a lot of information in this presentation. Please know that you can find this information and other resources on our homepage. We have a lot of information, it's always updated. You can check your license information, check the information of the other cooperating licensee. Now we have the 2024 real estate law, the historic broker compliance manual, self-evaluation. We have a lot of information. Please visit our website. If you have any information, don't hesitate to contact our center or follow us on social media for the latest information. You could email me directly at veronica.kilpatrick@dreca.gov, or you could just pop in our office pretty messed up, and we'll be happy to assist you. And I want to thank everyone for listening to this presentation. Hopefully there was not a lot of interference, and I will turn my camera on to see if you guys have any questions for me.
Hey, can we all thank? I'm so sad that they can't see you in person.
I'm sorry if I sped up, but I know we have a short period of time, so I wanted to cover as much information as
No, that was awesome. Thank you so much, because that's not a really easy topic to cover and be as enlightening as you are. Thank you so much. Do we have any questions? Do we have any cards? Anybody want to ask any questions? And I know that I had a couple people ask me to ask this particular question, and it has to do with one of our favorite topics. The clear cooperation one. Woo! Just wanted to ask you if you could go over a little bit about the clear cooperation with us, and then maybe, with that being said, where we should direct any of the things that we as realtors see out there in reference to maybe some violations with that, and then how you actually handled it or how you would direct it for us.
Well, thank you for the question. The DRE doesn't directly manage or has anything to do per se with clear cooperation. What the DRE looks at is whether the sellers and the buyers are clearly informed of their choices. For example, if someone has a pocket listing, would the person know that maybe they're limited their reach? And if they're okay with it, then we're okay with it. So we don't really get involved with business models or how someone conducts or even lists a property, as long as the seller of the property is aware and is okay with the information. It's when they fail to disclose that information or they provide a different information, they don't really act in the person's best interest, that they're usually the ones to complain, because it impacts primarily the seller. If you have any complaints, we look at every written complaint, and you could submit it online. You could go to our website, submit it online. You could print one and mail it. You could come to our office and complete one. You could email something, and then we will send you the information, and you can send all the documents. And if you record it all in your email, we could also set up a complaint based on that. But it has to be a written complaint. Also, although you may file the complaint anonymously, please know that a lot of the times we have to close those complaints because we don't have enough information. We don't have a way to follow up, to maybe ask you for additional documentation or clarification. If you file a complaint and just make a broad statement, it's very hard for us to actually follow up. If you say someone is committing fraud, you can tell us on what property, we could just ask, but we don't know exactly what to ask. We don't know the questions, we don't know what it's relating to. So it makes our job difficult, and unfortunately in some cases we have to close the complaints. Now, if you file anonymously and you give us absolutely everything because you're complaining about your ex-wife or ex-husband, you usually have all the evidence, and then we have it. But it is true. It is true. We get people ask me who files complaints against the licensing. It's usually your clients, your frenemies, which are your competitors within your office or in another office, and exes, ex-wife, ex-son, ex-everything. They usually have a lot more information too. It is a joke, but it is also true that we do get a lot of complaints from.
I love that. So complaining, our clear cooperation has a lot to do with the same thing as a divorce. That's awesome. That's amazing. Ex-wife, yeah. I like that, Veronica. That's awesome. Do we have any questions from the audience? Or you guys have compliance down to a T. There will not be any violations from this particular room, which I really love. So that part is awesome. Tyler, how much time do we have left here? 3 minutes. Okay, we got 3 minutes. Does anybody have one? Or do you just want, yes? You're going to ask from there, huh? I love that. No, you're awesome. Go ahead, shout it out, stand up. Veronica, that question was, what's the best way to get information on tenants and compliance in this situation? Is that a good paraphrase?
Yes, I think that the agent or the seller have to be, to look for the information from the local city or even the county, because we have some state laws that are, for example, you can't take a deposit for more than a month, or you can only get someone out for just cause. There are some areas that have additional limitations, like rent control, and they have more, or they have more notice, 120 days, or you have to pay for something. So the best thing is to inquire with the city and the county and make sure that you're aware of attending this event. You're going to get a list of all the tenant laws, but you could also go to the state's website, and they have tenants. There's also a pamphlet that the DRE and the Department of Consumer Affairs put together that has a lot of this information already included. We have a landlord, a tenant website that the DRE put during COVID that has a lot of information. But definitely you have to check with your local county or the city to see what additional laws or ordinances apply to tenants, because they vary. Unfortunately, they vary. So that's what we are advising, a lot of caution. You can't take one rule to apply to everything, because it also depends on individual cities.
Thanks, Veronica. Also, it's a good thing to call SCAR with regards to that. The other thing to remember is both agents, buyer's agent and selling agent, both have to be very familiar, because obviously you get two different parties going through the transaction, and as the buyer's agent, you need to make sure that obviously the seller, if there's a tenant involved in the property, that all the regulations are also being followed on that side. So really the communication between buying and selling agent is paramount during that kind of a transaction. And not only that, but especially if in fact you're going to be selling an investment property and the tenant is either staying or it wasn't a great situation and the tenant's been served, there's a lot of information. And so call up SCAR with regards to that, just to make sure that you get the rules and regulations underway. Kelly's a good person as far as getting that done. And then we also have another question.
Property management side, the security deposit, is it 1 month rent, or are we okay to charge unfurnished 2 months furnished?
Did you hear that, Veronica? 1 to 2 months?
I did, yes. There's a new law, and I believe it says that there's some exceptions, but from the way I read it, it says that you cannot charge more than 1 month. If you already have it, you don't have to give it back. But the law makes it that you cannot charge more than 1 month's rent, whether it's furnished or unfurnished. And I did present on that because we technically do not regulate it as a civil code issue, but that's one of the ones that passed, was in effect January 1st.
Hi, just wanted to clear something up. People had questions about parking and validation. If you valet parked when you go to retrieve your car, simply let them know that you're at the STAR event. If you parked yourself, same thing holds. When you check out, go through the gate. If there's another person there, hit the button, let them know you're at the STAR event. You will not be charged. I know there were questions about that, so I wanted to let you know. Thank you.
Okay, just wanted to let you know that the buyer representation is going to be the next class in here. 15 minutes? 10:35 is when it is. Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks. Another round of applause if we can get it for Veronica. Thank you, Veronica. You're amazing. We appreciate you so much.
Thank you, and hope to see you in person next year.
You got it. Thanks, everybody. Again, my representation here with Karen Van Ness is the next one, and 10:35.
Who's the sponsor of this class today? So.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sean Simon with my home lending, Singapore originator. I'm a former science teacher, an advanced underwater scuba diver, and I've been to 14 countries so far. And I'm also a really bad golfer, so don't invite me out to your some. I wanted to share with you some things that you don't really hear a lender talk about how can we help you get more listings? We know that it's going to get really competitive for buyers as the market begins to improve. Well, guess what? The competition among agents is going to heat up as well, because they're all going to want listings again, because they're going to get easier than they have been the last year. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to empower you to be the only agent who does a listing appointment and has the ability to solve a very common problem, which is how do you deal with the sale contingency when someone wants to move up? We will actually help you not only get a bridge loan like everybody does, but we will give you a guaranteed sale price. We will actually write a cash offer on your client's old home, which eliminates that house from their contingency. They don't have to qualify with it counted against them. And that is extremely powerful for you to not only have a contingency removed, but to have a guaranteed sale price. Now, I'm a lender, so of course I'm not going to leave the buyers out either. I'm going to help you get them under contract in multiple offer situations where we can close loans in as little as 15 days, and we guarantee our pre-approvals. If we do not meet our closing date, we actually pay the seller up to $5,000 for missing closings. That is extremely powerful when you're talking about getting people under contract with minimum down payments. First-time buyers are going to make up a significant portion of our market, so you're going to need to be able to help them compete even when they're putting low down payments or using government assistance programs. So come visit me at my group, at my booth, and I will tell you all about how we can help grow your business in this next year. Please enjoy this presentation. Have a great 2024.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Karen Van Ness. I'm the Chair of Education at SDAR, and we are honored to have Ken Kaplan here today, who, if anybody knows Ken, is renowned for buyer representation. That's all Ken does and has done for how many years? 27 years. And I've been using buyer representation since 1996. What a lot of people don't know is that buyer representation was actually put into the Code of Ethics by NAR in 1994 and amended in 1998. It's not new. We're just now starting to probably lean into it and get this sorted out. So I'm not going to take any more of your time, except we'll go ahead and get into our role play. Ken's going to be the buyer's agent, and I'm going to be the buyer. And I'm going to be expressing all the concerns that we hear buyers wonder about and ask about. And we're going to help you understand what this is going to look like when you are talking to your buyers and asking them to sign your buyer representation agreement. So we're just getting a couple things. So while he's getting set up, so if most of you know or don't know, there are 6 forms associated with the buyer representation agreement. And it's important that you understand that. We also, something that's been changed, there's days on the expiration of your buyer representation agreement. And there's a lot of legalities around how you complete it. So it's being taught at SDAR on the 17th of this month. Ken's going to be doing 2.5 hours. And we're going to be teaching you the ins and the outs of using it and the proper use of it with the other forms that need to be used with it and how to get through those. So with nothing else to say, we'll just get right to it.
Everybody hear me? I'm going to see if I can do this without the mic. See if everybody can hear me. Can you hear me? Anybody in the back?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great.
No, it's not great.
Oh, okay.
We need the microphone. We're recording.
Fair enough.
Yep, thank you.
You got it.
Okay, so Mr. Kaplan, hi, my name's Karen. My sister referred me to you, and I'm from another state, and so I'd like to talk to you about buying a home.
Great. Happy to help. So your sister found that much confidence in Mr. Chief. What are you looking for, if I may ask? When are you planning on moving?
We're moving in 60 days, and we really need a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage on a lot that's got room for my garden.
Great, sounds good. Are you familiar with San Diego?
Don't know anything about San Diego or California.
Perfect. Well, I think starting with the lay of the land, you should know what the market is doing currently. Then I'll go into what is the market doing. You guys don't need to hear this. Correct. What you want to hear is the nuts and bolts of this thing and how this works. Okay. So at some point in this conversation, it is important. 3 most important words in real estate. Anybody know what they are? Location, location, location. Wrong, wrong, wrong. Disclose, disclose, disclose. Disclose everything, disclose it early, disclose it often. Fair enough? So, in my initial talk with this potential buyer, it's important that I disclose to her what I expect of her and what she can expect from me. Karen, I just want to let you know how I work. There are 2 things that I ask of all buyers that I work with. Number one, while we're working together, we only work together and make a commitment to that. I don't like to make a commitment for more than 90 days. I want to make sure we both feel comfortable working together. And number 2, paramount to anything else, as we view properties, I want you to tell me what you like and what you don't like. It's not going to hurt my feelings. I've got no vested interest. I just want to make sure that I glean the right information from you so that I can narrow down properties and not waste your time. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, I'm just concerned, what if we work together for 2 weeks and I don't feel like you're a fit for me?
Sure. It's been my experience over 26, 27 years of doing this with buyers. It needs to be enough time to make sure that you're comfortable with it. So I guess the question that I would ask is, do you think 2 weeks is enough time to gauge how we're working together?
Well, in my past experience, I've had bad experiences with agents, and usually at about the 2-week mark, I want to kill them.
Sounds good. Well, fair enough. So then why don't we start with an initial 2 weeks? And at the end of 2 weeks, we can then decide whether we want to both continue. Fair enough?
Okay, absolutely.
Okay, great. So now I've got a buyer broker agreement that I'm going to present to her that she's going to sign for 2 weeks. Why is that important? What's that? She's comfortable, good. Setting expectations, everybody else? Sorry? Want to expand on that? She said commissions. So let's talk about that. Does a buyer broker agreement guarantee you a commission? It doesn't. What does it guarantee you? It guarantees you that in the event that this buyer chooses to purchase a property within that 2-week period, within that time frame, within the price range, and within the area that you've specified in the buyer broker, you will be their agent. That's all. Does not guarantee a sale, does not guarantee a commission. Does that make sense? You can write it differently, but that's the way it defaults. Good? Questions? Yes?
What if they end up buying the property you showed them you want them to do?
Fair enough. If you represented a seller, would you get a listing agreement? Fair enough. What's at the end of the term of that listing agreement?
Reservation of rights.
Reservation of rights. Fair enough. Reservation of rights. And what does that do? Anybody? Procuring cause. Good. What this buyer representation form is going to do is going to enable you to work with that buyer so you do not waste your time. Fair enough? You are going to have a clause at the end of that, just as you do in a listing agreement, that states exactly what properties that buyer is going to have to use you for. So at the end of that 2 weeks, by chance, it doesn't work out. You walk away, she walks away. Doesn't matter. Any of the properties that you are the procuring cause, they have to use you as their agent. Does that make sense? The buyer representation agreement cannot be used as a tool of entrapment. Good?
And I'm gonna add to that, you're gonna use your form ABCD. I use it, it makes it easy. Every time you show a property to the buyer, you complete the form, you put, it's the ABCD, it puts the address on it, and it shows whether there's a commission being offered from a CBC or the MLS, how much that commission is, and your buyer's gonna initial it. It makes it really simple to fill out your NBIP, Notice of Properties Notice of Broker Involved Properties, that you have to submit at the cancellation or expiration of your BRBC. Is that clear?
Yeah, good,
Good, okay.
fair enough.
Here we go. So he's gonna present it to me, put it in front of me with the agency first. The reason the agency's gonna come first,
Why?
anybody
Why does the
know?
agency come first? But what? Who says law? It is the law.
Civil code required.
Good?
So here's the thing you guys all need to remember. Civil code requirement for agency refers to more than a casual relationship. If I'm opening the door to show this buyer somebody's house, well, he's a stranger, I don't know him. And guess what? I don't know the seller either. I'm now letting a stranger, I'm opening the door for a stranger to a stranger's house. That does not define a casual relationship. Okay.
Okay?
All right. So he's going to present his BRBC.
Here's a copy of the BRBC that we've spoken about. This time, we've spoken about it once, correct? During our initial talk. My recommendation is, and I have never seen it used without doing this, is this cannot be a trap. This cannot be used on a, hey, we're sitting down and we're going to talk about this now. Can you sign this? I've never seen it used with any success that way. It is important to disclose what you're going to ask of that buyer at least a couple of times prior to sitting down and having them sign this buyer broker agreement. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually sit here and I'm going to, remember we spoke about the buyer broker agreement and this 3-month period of time or 2-week period of time?
Yes.
This is the document that defines this.
Okay.
Good. What this states is that in the event you choose to purchase a home within this time frame, within the areas we've spoken about, and in this area, you will use me as your agent.
Okay.
At the end of 2 weeks, we can revisit this. We can sign another buyer broker agreement. If you're not comfortable, we won't. And if I'm not comfortable, we won't. Because it's imperative that I get this feedback from you that I so desperately need so that I'm not wasting your time.
Okay, fair.
Good. That's the value to it. Good.
And that sounds fair.
Good. Okay. So here's the buyer broker agreement. We're going through it. Name, areas correct. Price range based on what you've told me and what you've talked to a lender about. This is the max. Okay. Fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any questions about this?
Is this your compensation? Is this your fee for the services you're charging?
Correct. So I charge a 2% minimum commission. In the event that that commission is met or given to me by someone else, third party, meaning the broker, the seller, at that point, you don't have the cost on your plate for my services.
And if you don't get that from them?
Well, bottom line is we're going to be looking at the commission structures before we walk in. So you'll know before you even see the house to determine, gosh, they're only offering 1.5%. Is it worth the other 0.5% for me?
Okay.
And you'll make that determination. But you'll know before we go see any property exactly what the commission structure is and if you're going to need to pay anything.
Reason to use the ABCD, by the way. So what if there's nothing being paid? Then what
So if there's
happens?
nothing being paid, then what we'll try and do is negotiate that commission structure that we're agreeing to with the seller so that they will hopefully compensate me and you won't have to come out of pocket.
Okay, but my concern is I don't have any money to come out of pocket with this. I can barely make this 3% down payment.
Absolutely. So what we'll do is we will negotiate it, we will structure it into the deal, and if we need to raise the purchase price to try and have that come in there to deal with the closing costs and putting it in the closing costs, we can attempt to do that as long as the lender approves.
Okay. And what if the lender doesn't approve it?
Then the bottom line is that is a cost that's gonna come out of your pocket that we'll have to find a way for you to pay.
Okay, all right. Is there a list of what you do for this amount of money? Because I'm thinking about buying $1 million house, so that means that I'm basically agreeing to pay you some way $20,000. Is there somewhere that it shows me what it is I'm doing to what you're doing, that I'm gonna pay you $20,000?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Here's a list of my services.
Okay,
This is what I do, and this is what I will show you, and you'll be able to count on and check off the boxes. Did he do this? Did he do that? Did he do this? Did he do that? And you'll be able to actually hold me accountable for everything that you here have on this list.
okay.
Good?
So you're probably not gonna like this question, but why wouldn't I use a listing agent and save money?
You know what? It's a great question, and here's the question I probably will pose to you. When a seller lists their property for sale, they have a contract with that listing agent. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Understand?
Okay.
Fair enough. In that contract, the listing agent has a fiduciary obligation by law and in the contract to get the seller the highest possible price and best possible term.
Okay.
We're in agreement with that?
Yeah.
So then I question, if you go to a listing agent and they've got a fiduciary obligation by law in the contract to get the seller the highest possible price and best possible terms, how then do you play chess from both sides of the board as long as you get paid twice?
Okay, that makes sense. I just had a listing agent tell me that they would discount the commission by 1% if I worked with them.
Sure.
So I was just wondering.
So yes, the question really is then, if that agent is willing to cut their commission up front, and they're telling you that, if they're that bad of a negotiator on their own behalf, how good of a negotiator do you think they're gonna be for you?
Okay, so you're telling me that you're gonna bring me more value and help me get a better price because you're representing me.
Correct, and I'll tell you what,
negotiator.
I'll back that up. If you don't feel that I'm worth this commission at the end of the transaction, don't pay me.
Wow. Do you put that in writing?
Absolutely.
Wow. Okay, so I have nothing to lose.
There's nothing.
Okay, what if I don't find a property and you've spent time and energy and whatever else you spent? What do I owe you?
Nothing. The only thing you owe me are referrals as long as I have done my job and you are comfortable recommending me to your friends.
Okay. Do you all see how it is almost impossible for a buyer to not go along with that? Because there's just no reason. Because I don't have to buy a house. If I don't find a house, I don't have to pay them. We can make it, you can make it 2 weeks, you can make it 6 months. By the way, the BRBC is I didn't do this one. So it says here that it's non-exclusive.
No, that is an option, but I only work exclusively. And like we spoke about twice before, this is the representation agreement that I said that we work together exclusively.
Okay.
That's really important, that's why I stated that when we first spoke, and then in our second conversation.
Okay, good, I forgot about that. So, as you should know, if you don't know, the BRDC is non-exclusive by default unless you check paragraph 4B2, then it becomes exclusive. Now, it still can be canceled. If it's a non-exclusive, you can cancel it immediately upon either party submitting a cancellation in writing.
Unless you check the box that says it cannot be canceled.
Correct.
Good. So here's my personal opinion about it after teaching the buyer for 26 years. There's no reason to use a non-exclusive. Why even get it signed? It's not worth the paper it's written on. Get the exclusive signed, that's one to get signed. And check the box that it's not negotiable. It has to be canceled unilaterally.
Ken, isn't it true though that even when you put cannot be canceled, it still can be, but it has to be a mutual agreement?
It has to be by mutual agreement, and more likely than not, someone's gonna have to not do their part for somebody to come up with a reason on why they would want to cancel.
And I've never met an agent that kept a client as a hostage. So, you know, if they want out, most people want them out too. It's usually a breakdown in the relationship, so everyone's happy to split the sheets.
Questions? Yes?
Are you saying that you do not recommend dual agents?
Nope, I'm saying that I don't feel comfortable with it. How's that? By law, it's allowed in California, as long as all parties agree to it and sign the paper accordingly.
I'd like to see a show of hands of people who successfully had dual agency transactions.
Perfect. And I wouldn't tell you to do anything different. What I'm telling you is this is what I do.
Yeah, and we're only here talking about buyer representation, not dual agency. So that's not our
But when-
way.
You don't show your own listings, or you just don't list homes at all?
No, on a rare occasion, I will list properties for past clients, but
Do you show that home to the buyer?
no.
Okay, so we're
I'll
gonna,
refer it to another agent.
okay, we're gonna move off
I-
of dual agency, that is
Good.
not what this is about. So back to buyer representation.
Yes. It's never happened. It's not once ever happened.
Okay,
If
now,
I can't show my worth to a client and impress them that much, I should just get out of the business now.
I have a question, raise your hand, then right
okay.
over here.
And so I'm gonna speak that I've had 3 times where either the client or myself, we weren't having a meeting of the minds. I didn't like them or they didn't like me. And that just happens. And so they said, you know, I'm not feeling good, or I said, you know what, you haven't performed by getting your finances in order. I can't work with people if you're not financially approved. So I have had it where I have canceled it. I'm happy to cancel it. I don't want problems in my life.
But I would say, if you're going to cancel, if you're going to cancel, change the expiration date. Don't null and void the contract. Why? Because that's going to null and void any and all of the properties that you showed them that you were procuring cause on. Does that make sense? Good? And when you're going to take a listing, get the buyer-broker agreement signed then. You've got them filling out all the paperwork, you've got them signing everything. Get the buyer-broker agreement signed when you go to a listing. They're already shaking their head yes anyways. Good?
That's a good point. But another question back when you guys were chatting. So, Mr. Buyer's agent,
Yes.
the seller, the listing agent's gonna reduce his commission. So even if you're saying it's not worth your money if they can't negotiate it, the seller's more likely gonna accept my offer because they're gonna be paying less in commission. So
And they may.
why wouldn't I do that?
Well, the question is, why wouldn't you take representation independent of another agent who's got a vested interest with a fiduciary obligation to the seller?
I mean, I'm gonna get the house, so.
Okay, fair enough, you're gonna get a house. What's the vast majority of litigation that comes out of real estate? Anybody?
Escrow,
Disclosure.
trust accounts.
There you go. So we all know the answer to that question. And so that's the question that I pose with my buyer questions.
If anybody has questions and you raise your
Question,
hand,
raise your
Mr.
hand.
Hans
Okay,
will
green
come on over and give you the mic. Do you guys all feel comfortable having a buyer representation signed? Show of hands, please.
Show of hands, is that yes or no?
Yes.
How many don't? How many
Yeah, how
don't
many
feel
don't?
comfortable with what was just presented? Go ahead, raise your hands.
Okay, can you tell us why? Can somebody tell us what makes you feel uncomfortable?
The reason I don't feel comfortable is because of the money part. And it's not that I'm uncomfortable making money, but when I'm working with a buyer that is now gonna pay $7,000 a month in a mortgage, and then I'm gonna ask them to pay me as well, it's not an easy
So
conversation.
let's talk about that for a second. You don't have to just jump into you're paying my commissions. Does that make sense? Everything is negotiable. So if you're most comfortable, I mean, you can't run before you walk. So if you start with, I'm accepting whatever commission is given, get comfortable with that for 6 months. Then move on to, I'm going to set a minimum threshold. Does that make sense? But get it signed. If not, just to make sure that you are covered on your procuring cause homes. Does that make sense? Don't put a commission in there. That's fine. put a minimum threshold in. It's probably based on the changes and based on what everything, that's come down over the past 6 months with rulings. It is probably, in my opinion, not the opinion of anybody else, it is probably going to go towards sellers reducing what they pay to buyer's agents. And then essentially and eventually move to not paying a buyer's agent and having it separated. Because that's kind of what the crux of the whole issue was. Right? So, I'm getting you prepared. Be prepared for a changing market. But don't run. Walk. Don't put a minimum commission threshold in there. Leave that empty. Accept whatever commission is being given. Make sense? That way you don't have to have that uncomfortable conversation with the buyer. But at least you start using the agreement. And that's the first step. Yes?
A comment to support that. I started doing, especially since the new purchase agreement now has the seller to pay buyer broker commission already embedded in it. It makes it a very easy conversation. So have the buyer representation agreement signed, have your own commission amount. Say, okay, I only take, I get paid 3% commission. This is not going to be a factor into you getting the home. If we come to a point that, let's say they're offering 2.5%, this just gives me permission on your behalf to negotiate an additional 0.5%. That's going to be paid by the seller towards closing costs, whatever it may be. Whether they paid it or not, you get the house. We could work on it later because you get to pay it. So one of the ones I was, they offered 2.5. Additional seller to pay buyer broker form in with the purchase agreement. There was no conversation from the other side about why that was added. The seller simply countered back with that additional percentage in the purchase price. Buyer accepted. Easy peasy. I mean, it was like nobody even cared to talk about it.
Yeah. And so here's the other thing. Everybody hear that, by the way? Everybody hear it, right? I hate this. So that's one part of it. The next step up from that is, if in the event there is a percentage that is not covered by the listing agent that you would be responsible for. If you don't feel that I've earned that 0.5%, 1/4%, whatever it may be, I'd be happy to wait. Again, it's being able to show your worth and stand behind it. Yes?
Wouldn't you have to put that in writing? I mean, we are talking large dollar amounts. I mean, you'd have to put it in somewhere where.
You would. You absolutely would, if you wanted to do that. Some people don't want to do that, and that's okay. Again, you need to kind of ramp up to this. This is not, hey, I'm doing this full bore right away. Go slow. Start slow. Start small.
And I would say, so when I work with these, I work with every buyer. I don't care if it's my sister, I don't care if it's a Supreme Court justice. I actually did one with a Supreme Court justice recently, and he asked me, he said, so what am I signing? And I looked for an easy way to make it. So if you have a CPA, you have an attorney, it's really easy with attorneys. It's like, well, you guys work with retainer fee agreements, right? This is a retainer agreement. Now, it's a fee agreement. The difference is that my fee is contingent on me closing escrow. So you don't have to pay it because I did the work. You don't pay it until we successfully close an escrow. And on the form, if there's a place where you can elect, if the commission offered by a CBC or an MLS is more than what you're charging, it defaults to going to the brokerage. But you can also credit that to the buyer. And these things can all be managed on the different forms. So when people say, well, what if the buyer's not offering any commission? And I say, okay, well, then we're gonna provide the SPBB, seller to pay buyer broker, and the written portion, and this is important on your BRDC, only the written portion regarding the commission that the buyer has committed to the buyer's agent is attached with the SPBB along with the RPA paragraph 3G3 checked and submitted to the seller's agent, for the seller's agent to submit to the seller. Now, if I write a good, clean offer, and I'm not trying to fleece that seller for my buyer, I've written a good offer for my buyer, what seller is gonna go, oh no, I'm not gonna pay it, I don't want that good offer. I mean, if you've written a good offer, more than likely they're gonna continue to pay. I haven't had anybody say no yet. But if they did, if that happened, okay, then worst case scenario I see, I'm gonna tell my buyer, if you really want this house, we may have to increase the price by the amount of the buyer representation. It's gonna come out of the loan. Where do you think it comes out from now? Guess what? The loan. So the money is coming from the same source. It's just a matter of how you get there. And this is clean, much cleaner than the listing agent paying the buyer's agent, for which the seller committed without having the chance to negotiate. And then guess what happens to sellers? They get these lowball, dirty, nasty, rotten offers, and they have to pay the agent that wrote that? How would you feel about paying $50,000 to the person who just drove your price down $50,000? This is why we have a problem. And we probably should have had this cleaned up decades ago. It's 30 years since it was addressed in the Code of Ethics, buyer representation. But it just didn't happen, but it is now.
Questions?
Hi, can you give us some advice for new agents, how to overcome these objections, for example?
The concerns, come to our classes, because he will be doing this on the 17th at SDAR for 2 hours. Right now you're getting 30 minutes. So it'll be tons of time for question and answer.
Thank you.
Questions?
Can you please give us the 6 forms so that we can make sure that we have them written down?
Yes. Any of the acronyms incorrect. You know, there's over 300 and something forms and subforms. Okay, so you've got your BRBC. You've got your COBR. That's the cancellation of buyer representation. You've got the NBIP, notice of broker involved properties. Of course, you've got the RPA, which is just paragraph 3G3. You've got the SPBB, seller to pay buyer broker. You've got the ABCD. This is a rough one.
Yeah!
And that is the anticipated broker compensation disclosure. And there's the BTA, it's the buyer transactional addendum. I will tell you, this addendum, all it does is talk about what you're not responsible for. If I was a buyer, I would not like to read that addendum and be asked to sign anything along with it. And we'll be talking about how these forms are used, the different paragraphs that support them, and all the finer details in our classes. We'll be having monthly, if not bi-weekly classes on buyer broker at SDAR. We're leaning in hard and committing a lot of time to helping everybody get through this, get comfortable, and help protect your fees, which you will spit blood for and have been for years. Any other questions? The third form, the NBIP, notice of broker involved properties.
We got 1 minute, 1 question left, and it's yours.
I have a question about agents that I've been chatting with are asking buyers, do you want me to show you all of the properties, or do we just want to look at properties that are offering buyer agent compensation? And I wanted to know how you would walk through that, and there is that box that you can check on the representation form, and any information or insight on that.
So that's why you're going to use the ABCD. And so I generally don't ask them what because they're not really, at the end of the day, they should not see a property because it says 0. I mean, I'm getting paid what I get paid to negotiate, and I'm a vicious negotiator. So I don't want them to miss out on their dream home because it says 0. That's my job is to get it for them and negotiate it through. So I use the ABCD so they can see what commissions are being paid on each property I'm showing them. And when we get to the one and the dream home is 0, okay, I got that. I'm gonna lean in, I'm gonna make it happen. And I haven't had a 0, to be honest with you yet, but we do know they're coming. And that's why we are trying to get in front of this.
And I would just reiterate that. I would absolutely reiterate that. I show every property. I don't care about the commission structure. That's not why I'm in this. My livelihood isn't made on one transaction. My livelihood is made by the fact that I represent my clients fairly and that they give me referrals because I've done so, whether they purchase or not. But I show everything, regardless of commission structure.
And I second that. So that's our job. We're fiduciary agents. We are supposed to work in the interest of our clients first and foremost. Thank you guys for all being here.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, guys. If everyone can exit to the back, we're going to open the big room up for Breakout Center. So we're going to go to the back.